compelling detective story, a cloak and dagger action, and a romantic drama, all these stories were taken from real life. The history of Kazakhstan is inseparable from the world history. Reflections on history, our version.
The road to the future. As usual, Abul Mansur Sultan is going along theatre corridors. Literally in an hour, Ablai Khan will be going confidently along the same corridors. Right now I'll portray young Ablai Khan. After that I'll change the costume, portray the mature Ablai Khan. At the time described here, Ablai Khan had already been an experienced politician at the age of 60. He went through life full of trials, losses and military glory. Next we will see the most dramatic page in the history of two people's so-called Dust Campaign. Ablai Sultan decided not to pursue them with his troops. The tired Khan battle lifted Kazakhs' national spirit and strengthened their national consciousness. Ablai and some Kazakh bagators showed their great insight in a difficult historical period. Chapter 1. With a heavy heart. It was 1771, 20 years passed after the collapse of the Jungar Khanate. A part of the Jungars, known as the Kalmyks, moved to the Volga banks after they were defeated in the Qing army. Russia placed them under strong pressure. The Khan's authority was abolished. Orthodox was spread by the force, and the Germans, peasants from central Russia, we resettled in the Volga Valley. These matters caused the Volga Kalmyks considerable hardships. They were naive and distant from the center of power. The Russian police officers took advantage of this and started oppressing them. Their complaints did not reach the authorities, thus they decided to leave Russia and secretly establish contact with the Chinese government. Discontent grew among the Jungars to such an extent that punitive forces were sent to suppress the rebels. We have to return to the lands of our ancestors. This determination was encouraged from inside and outside. The Chinese emperor contributed to that. His letters encouraged them to return and promising happy life because they had destroyed all the Jungars were taken away. Some researchers suppose that the Jungars turned out to be the victims of a conspiracy which had not been uncovered yet. They prepared for the campaign for a few years, and Prince Ubashi, who was only 26, headed it. The Jungars had to respond to this call too. In a hurry, they abandoned their nomadic tents, skinny cattle, little children, idols, and ill people. On average, there were about 5 people in every nomadic tent. In the winter of 1771, on January the 5th to be exact, more than 50,000 Jungars, nomad tents, or 250 to 270,000 people, the enormous mass moved through Kazakhstan to destroy the Jungaria. Legend has it that Ubashi consulted with an old prophet who said women should not bear children for 3 years. Stallions should not be allowed to approach mares, and everyone should take a stone before starting the campaign. When they approached the Ural, they acted on the third piece of advice given by the old prophet. He told every Jungar to throw a stone, and as a result, a ford formed. It isn't far away from the Kalmyk village. The Jungars crossed the Ural and found themselves in the Kazakh Khanate. The plans of Russia did not involve such a massive resettlement of its subjects. First, they tried to stop them, showing kindness and by means of persuasion. However, the migrants attacked Russian settlements and killed about 1,000 merchants and workmen. They tried to force the Yaik Cossacks to suppress the rebels, but they refused to obey that order. As for the Orenburg Cossacks, they were not successful in the pursuit. Then the Russian government made an effort to involve the Kazakh troops. Chapter 2: The Final Battle. The performer and composer managed to convey both character strength and inner steadfastness. Often he had to make difficult decisions in tense situations. He hadn't been a Khan at that time yet. Although Abul Mambiet ruled the Middle Juz, Ablai Sultan's word was decisive.
Аблай, несмотря на то, что был очень сильно привязан.
Although Ablai was strongly influenced by the historical circumstances of that time, sometimes he was able to change those circumstances.
Иногда встать над этими обстоятельствами.
At that time, he was a subject of both China and Russia. Thus, on one hand, he had to help Russia with the pursuit. On the other hand, he had to respond to China's request for allowing the Dzungars to pass freely. As a country ruler, this person needed to be wise and able to walk a tightrope between Russia and his people. First and foremost, the far-sighted and cunning Sultan implemented his own plans. Ablai Sultan wanted to permit them to pass. Besides the agreement with the Chinese, he had a strategic plan. He knew the Dzungars were related to the Kazakhs and were nomads too. If they passed and were given land, they could form a buffer state between China and the Kazakhs and manage to hold back the Chinese who were planning an aggressive actions. However, the comrades in arms did not support Ablai. The junior Juz troops were the first to attract the Dzungars near the Emba River. The Kazakhs decided to take revenge for the former humiliation and the defeats inflicted earlier. As a result, the whole steppe got into the fight. Ablai fought a few times and always achieved success. The united forces of the Kazakhs inflicted serious harm to the enemy and the number of captives was very high. The fiercest battle was fought near the lake Alakol. 80,000 soldiers headed by Ablai and Ablai Khan totally defeated the Dzungars' combat-ready units. The decisive Tayad Khan battle took place near the Mointy River, in the area neighbouring Lake Balkhash. A Kazakh detachment headed by Ablai Sultan held them back. According to various data, there were up to 50,000 warriors in the Kazakh troops. They were outnumbered by the Dzungars, who had about 70,000 people. A legend has it that the militia men attempted to defeat the enemy by a strategy. They drained water from the river near where the Dzungars were stationed. As a result, in a week they started suffering from illnesses. Although they fought with varying success, finally the Kazakh militia won. Then the Dzungars tried to come to an agreement with them. Ubashi realized the real strength of his opponent. Such a military leader as Ablai was significant, and he asked to grant him citizenship. Of course, Ablai did not believe him. Some Kazakh warriors insisted on destroying the enemy completely, but Ablai Sultan was against it. The troops were positioned opposite each other for 3 days, but they did not reach an agreement. At night, the Dzungars made fires and started singing and dancing. The Kazakhs thought that they probably were celebrating a wedding, and their life continued. But, according to a version, that night the main part of the Dzungars abandoned their camp and 5,000 suicide attackers who continued to fight until the end. Most of them retreated, leaving behind suicide units attempting to hold back the Kazakhs and dying in the process. Having destroyed the Dzungar detachments, the Kazakh Bagators rushed to pursue them. However, Ablai Sultan did not follow the enemies and did not try to destroy them completely. Only some Kazakh bagators who were the leaders of certain units and people's patrols pursued the Dzungars on personal initiative. It was the result of the 200-year confrontation between the Kazakhs and the Dzungars. Chapter 3: The Dust Campaign. They tried to reach the former borders of Dzungaria. According to some information, they divided into two parts. One part went east through the Sari Arka steppes, while the other part, headed by Ubashi, went south towards the Ili River. Only a quarter of them reached the Qing Empire on August 7th, 1771. From 60 to 100,000 Dzungars remained in the Kazakh land. Some of them were killed or taken into captivity, and the others died from starvation and diseases. However, those sacrifices were wasted because the Dzungar state did never revive. They were resettled in northwest China on the Qing's official's order. It was natural that they could not live in the same region. In Russia, all these events are known as the Torgaud campaign, after the Dzungar tribe. In Kazakh legends, another name, which is the Dust Campaign, was used. This name was not given by a mere chance. Shanbasar was a tax put on the passage through an area belonging to another clan. When they were driving their cattle onto another clan's territory, the cattle grazed and disturbed the dust lying there. Those who drove their cattle through the other clan's areas had to pay the so-called dust tax. The passage of over 200,000 Dzungars formed heavy dust clouds and did harm pastures. The Kazakhs thought that the Dzungars had to pay dust tax for their passage. However, the Dzungars weren't going to pay any tax, which was the reason why the Kazakhs attacked them without prior arrangement. They collected the tax by attacking them and taking them into captivity. Epilogue: Triumph of Wisdom. The Dust Campaign acted as a catalyst for these events, which occurred not only in the Kazakh steppe. First and foremost, it referred to Pugachev's rebellion, a Russian general set to an investigation into the affairs of Yaik Cossacks, who had refused to pursue the Dzungars. The Cossacks were punished severely and rebelled, which led to Pugachev's revolt. Incidentally, the Dzungars played quite a significant part in the rebels' troops. The Dust Campaign predetermined the future not only for the Kazakh and Russian people, but also for the whole of the Eurasian nationalities. These documents mainly refer to the formation and beginning of the bouquet or inner horde establishment. The archives contain some documents. They are mainly in the archival section of Astrakhan's civil governor and military governors. The areas abandoned by the Dzungars remained empty for a long time, and Bukai Sultan sent an appeal to Paul I of Russia asking to provide an opportunity to lead a nomadic lifestyle in those areas. Paul I of Russia signed an order relating to the areas which had been empty after the Dzungars left them during the Dust Campaign in the Volga region. In addition, effective actions and ability to make a right decision strengthened Ablai's authority to a great extent. After Abulmambet Khan's death, he was proclaimed Khan of all the Kazakhs. According to historian Levshin, Ablai said that had been bestowed this title thanks to the victory over the Dzungars. No people need anybody to depict their history in an attractive way. Although no people have an appealing history, there are positive actions which were performed by some rulers and their wisdom. He skillfully attracted followers using his importance and careful attitude, and his enemies were afraid of his strength. According to circumstances, he claimed that he was now a Russian subject, now a Chinese subject. However, in fact, he was an absolutely independent ruler. It became especially notable after 1771.